Starlyn Caba, like, let's just bury the lead. Starlyn
Let's go.
Caba, he could be the Phillies star boy, basically, right? He's an above average hitter. He is one of the best defensive shortstops I've seen, like at all, like in my time covering the minor leagues. Like he is such a wizard there. The way in which he can just get backhand, forehand, range forward, range backwards, it is a near preternatural feel for playing the shortstop position. It is we don't see a lot of shortstops like this. Like the only prospect that I can think that was kind of like this since I've started covering prospects is maybe like I mean like JP Crawford was a good defensive shortstop at points, but I think Caba has more tools. I think he's a touch better fielder. I think has a much better arm than he ever did. He's a much better runner than he ever was at certain points. Caba has that sort of arm where he can make any sort of throw from any variable, any platform. It's almost like, when Patrick Mahomes and Matt Stafford throw sidearm and still get the completion 15, 20 yards down the field. Like that's what Caba sort of has on him. And he's got the elusiveness, like with that, he's got the wiggle and everything that you want from a guy who's going to be hitting towards the top of the lineup. I think Caba is one of the most exciting young prospects in the game. Sure, he's small. Sure, he's not going to hit for a bunch of power. But when you're a 70 shortstop, look at Dansby Swanson. Dansby Swanson, over the past 2 years, or since 2022, essentially, because I wrote an article on the Andres Jimenez trade recently. Dansby Swanson is the best defender by outs above average in all of baseball, like by a nice margin. Caba could be that level of defender. Like that's the sort of upside that I view with him. And if he's the same sort of, there's maybe 20 home runs in his best season and he's hitting 250 to 260 and maybe he sprays doubles around. And I think there's a chance that Caba is just like, he could just be the dude. Like he could just be awesome.
I think that's a player that I'm excited about, at least from a real world perspective. So you just said something that I'd like to almost, not that I don't have anything to say about Kava, but I'm more interested in this from you, Reese, just because you are so passionate about him and about his carrying tool of the defense. You said in a best year, if Kaba is looking at 20 home runs, a 260 average, what do you project on the average year from Starlyn Caba, who, again, I think that clearly there's enough of, the otherworldly defense at shortstop. He's got a good arm. He's good and quick, makes the good plays. What does it look like at the plate for him then in an average year, you think?
I think 250 with 15 to 18. And then in his best years, some batted ball luck goes his way. The wind blows out in the right direction for two batted balls, and he's all of a sudden hitting 20 home runs. So I think that's the sort of upside I see with him. And if he's a 20 home run like shortstop with that sort of defense, that is like not an MVP candidate, but he's going to be top of the leaderboard of like WAR and everything like that. He's like, I know he's a better real life player than a fantasy player, but I still think there's some fantasy viability in him. He stole like bases at a 94% clip. Like he could steal 25 to 30 to 40 bases. He's that sort of runner. So I'm just all in on Caba. He has a chance to be a legitimate star.
He does. I think that we should say that too. Just that'll be the point that I'll make with most certainty for all of you at home. I'm invited here to talk about fantasy, and Reese is absolutely correct. This player could be incredibly valuable in fantasy baseball. Consider if he's going to play every day, because the Phillies have to have a quality defender at shortstop, and he can hit the ball with regularity, and he has non-negligible power, and he can run, and he has the baseball IQ to steal bases. And I don't see him move. I mean, it would take another guy with preternatural shortstop ability, if I can steal the phrase that you just used, Reese, to push him off of short, even at an older age. So you're looking at a guy who's going to play an incredibly premium defensive position. You're looking at a guy that has tools and is still very, very young. I think this is obviously one of the top prospects in the Philly system. And for anybody to say that he wouldn't be fantasy valuable is kind of missing the forest for the trees. I mean, consider, even if it takes a minute, right, Reese? You just compared him in a sense to JP Crawford, who was a fine shortstop in a 16 team, 15 team, or even deeper. He's a great player to have at shortstop in your fantasy leagues as recent ago as I think last year.
Yeah. Like, and at points in his real, and like, looking at a WAR metric, JP Crawford put up a 5 WAR season. So like he has
Exactly.
like, that there's a lot of value tied up into